Okay, picking up where we left off on the hour system. Basically, you'll see here I've defined a variable that's we'll call it hour equals 1, as while it's less than 4, which means you have up to 3 hours that we're going to do. We're going to do a player roll, which is a random number between 1 and your skill rand, and then we're doing a harvest roll, which is a random number between 1 and the harvest rand. So we're running the two together. If the player roll is greater than the harvest roll, then you caught something, and it's just going to tell you the name. It took how many ever hours it took, which right now is 1. It's going to define some variables, and the next thing it's going to do, all this right here is just checking your backpack. If your backpack is less or is greater than 15, it's saying, hey, your pack's full, you had to leave it. Let me go ahead and say that some people didn't like this. They wanted to be able to drop their items. They wanted to be able to go into their backpack and say, okay, I don't want this, but I want to keep this I just caught. I didn't give the option for that because I never went into that feature, but you can go ahead and come in here and edit it. All you have to do is, I guess, make you a form that's like a post method and say, okay, which item do you want to drop? Attach whatever you just caught to that post method, not a get method, so they can't alter it. And then it ends up to where you drop that item and that other item takes the place. You can go ahead and put that in here, and I would recommend it. I just never did. The other thing I recommend, which I did in all my later ones, is make your pack size a dynamic variable by going into players, creating a new field called backpack, and you can do the same thing with your weapons and equipment. And then with your backpack, you can come in here, instead of making it 15, you can make it an actual variable. So that way, let's say for your game, when players, the default is 10 for the backpack. When players first register, they get 10 items. Well, for $1 a month, you can set that to where you now get 20 items, and then so in other words, you just set in the database, you just set it to where backpack equals 20 for that player, and now he can hold 20 items. And you need to do this in all of your fishing, your harvest, and everything. Just change that simple deal, and you'll have a dynamic system to where you can actually change it depending on if they donate, or maybe you just want to give out prizes if you want to do money or whatever it may be. But that's how you change that. It's pretty simple. Just make sure you change it for all of them and anything to do with items. The next thing we want to do is we want to do what I was talking about before. We want to take the stamina, times it by the hour, times 2. So in other words, if you did it for 1 hour, it's 2 stamina gone. Update the player's stamina. And what this is doing here is this, even if your backpack is full, it's still minusing the stamina. So the next thing we want to do is, if it's not full, then we're going to add it to the backpack. We're going to set the random on it, the random ID, and then we're going to add experience. I made the experience a modifier of how tough the thing was to fish, so that's what this is. Turn it into an integer. You can kind of read through and see how this works. It's pretty simple. Print out how much experience you get. We want to add, first thing we want to do is give the experience a minus the stamina. The next thing we want to do is we want to update the map, because since someone has fished here, we want to make the fishing a little harder for the next person if they just come right after and fish it, or if the same player does it. So that's when we're going to change our mod on our fishing. Then when we're done with that, we're just going to set an image to go back to the map, which you guys may want to change. Of course, you're going to want to change the graphics, but you may want to change to a text or something, because I don't know how much I like those buttons, but that's up to you guys. But anyway, if the hour is greater than 3 and you still haven't caught anything, that's what this is saying, because it's actually going to exit if you catch something. The code is. If you still haven't caught anything and it's been more than 3 hours, then it's going to say, it's going to take your stamina and times it by your hours. You fail to catch anything, and it's going to be 3 hours. Then it's going to minus your stamina, and it's going to exit. You're done. You can't fish anymore right here. If you didn't catch anything and it's not greater than 3 hours, then it's going to add 1 hour, and then it's going to start over at this while loop and try it again. So in other words, it's going to keep doing it until 3 hours is up. So you actually fish 3 times in 3 hours until you catch something. If you fish and catch something in the first hour, then you only lose an hour's worth of stamina, and you catch it in that first hour. Harvest, lumber, hunting, and mining are exactly the same, except for the actual materials used. That's the only difference in this. You'll notice as you go through here, it picks from a different. It picks harvest from skills, and then it picks from the hard mats. And of course, the text is a little different, but the code is exactly the same. The good thing about that is that when you go to change, there's not a whole lot to change. You just change the same thing in all these. One thing I will say, I got a couple of Easter eggs in here of code that may have been changes or things I was going to try differently, or features I never did add. I'm not going to go over them in the video. If you see them and you want to go through them and you like them, use them. Some of them may be garbage, some of them may be just stuff I just didn't delete. That's up to you. They're already commented out. If you don't know what they are, don't use them, but if you like them, use them. I'm not gonna, like I said, it's been years since I've been through this code, so I'm not really gonna go through them. That's up to you guys. But one thing I do want to show you is actually the material system. Let's look at the mining materials. You notice I have the names, and you guys will have these in here too. I'm going to give you these guys, give you all these. But then there's going to be a type. There's a craftable, there's a steel, there's black powder, there's brass, there's edible, there's all different kinds of types. Then your stats. This is what stat it's going to bring up. This is the mod that it's going to add to whatever stat that is, the price that it sells for, the level it is, if it's consumable. Of course, titanium is not consumable, so it's 0. And then the map. Currently, if you notice here, this sulfur can only be found in the ruins, and that's what this says. If you have a map where you only want something to be found, then you put it whatever the name of the map is. Now, I know some people are going to be like, well, what if I want it in 2 maps? Well, then you come up here to where it actually selects the item, where actually it doesn't even look like I have it set to where it goes by map. Let's see. So actually, if you want that to be to work, we need to actually change this to where level is less than max find, and map equals, and then the player info 3 map is what you would set here. And basically you would just go through and put player info 3 map. That way it's wherever the player is located. Or, and you want to put this in parentheses for this and, or where map equals any. That way you could come over here, and I did this on the new game, and I didn't do it on the older game, and I think that's where, I think this was a feature I was going to add. So that's all you got to do to fix it. But you could actually just put any here if you want it on any map, and then just go into your, all these are going to be the same. Go into where it selects it and just change it to select all from harvest mats, where level, keep that the same, and map equals player input 3 map, and or map equals any. That's all you really got to do there. It's pretty simple. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, just come to the forums and ask, and I'll put an example code up there. But if we go to our actual harvest mat, you'll see that there's a lot of edible ones in here because it's berries and stuff like that. But if you go down to page 2, you'll see where I started some ruins, and like the thorn vine or the death vine, you don't want to eat that, so it's going to be 0, and you're going to have your stats as damage. It actually adds damage to your sword or whatever it is whenever you go to craft it, if you include it in there. So that's basically the hunting and the fishing system. It's a real easy system. Let's go back to it. Just remember when you change things to change them all in these if you're going to change something.